something that people say when they've got that feeling of butterflies in their stomach about a special someone. I think I'm falling in love. That's what people say when they've got that warm, fuzzy feeling inside about Mr. or Miss Semi-Perfect, that person who makes their heart beat just a little faster. But people don't just say, I think I'm falling in love. People also sometimes say, I think I've fallen out of love. Maybe a friend said that to you in high school after he got over his first crush and was no longer infatuated with her anymore. I think I've fallen out of love. I think I've fallen out of love. That's maybe what a friend might confide in you, who no longer really wants to spend time with her husband. I think I've fallen out of love. In our second lesson for today, the Apostle John talks to us about abiding in love. And it's very clear from his words that he wants to encourage you and me to abide in love. That may at times seem like a hard thing. With all the way that this world talks about falling in and out of love, with the way that people often think of love, it may seem like a challenge to abide in love, to remain in it. I mean, how do you abide in love when it's seemingly so easy to fall in and out of it? Well, that's why the Apostle John starts where he does in talking about abiding in love. He starts by talking about God's love. In fact, that very first statement of our second lesson, that's one that's very memorable, isn't it? John wrote, God is love. And in fact, if we're going to think about love, then we need to think about God. And that's because God himself defines what love is. He defines love because he has shown perfect love. As God defines and describes love to you and me, he doesn't talk, though, about butterflies in his stomach, about the way that he feels towards us. He doesn't talk about how excited he is and how his heart beats faster when you spend time with him in his house. No, God's love isn't really defined by those kinds of feelings or emotions. In fact, truth be told, instead of feeling butterflies in his stomach or warm fuzzies towards us, God ought to feel pretty angry with us. He ought to be enraged because of your sin and my sin. I mean, you've repulsed God with your rebellious love for this world. You've shoved God away with your selfish thoughts about how you want to spend your time and your talents and your treasures. You've disgusted God with your desire to do what you want despite his will. God ought to feel the farthest thing from butterflies in his stomach. And yet, shortly before the words of our second lesson, the Apostle John put pen to paper and wrote, "In this, the love of God was made manifest among us." Now listen, because you're not going to hear about butterflies or warm fuzzies. This is how God made his love manifest. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. God's love had nothing to do with feelings or emotions. It had everything to do with actions. God's love met the greatest need that you have. God's love is about what he has done to rescue you from punishment. The love God has for you is defined by what you see right here next to the pulpit. God's love is his Son, bleeding and broken, dejected and dying on a cross for you. God's love has given you a life that you didn't deserve and a home that you didn't earn, because God's love paid the cost of your crimes in the blood of his very own Son. God's love gives you the hope of a future free from the troubles and the problems and the suffering of this life. Because before you were born, God acted to take care of the problem that would trouble you all your days, the problem of sin. God's love is his Son, sacrificed so that you could have life with him forever. That's God's love that John encourages and urges you and me to abide in. And there's a good reason why John urges us to abide in God's love for us. He talks about it as he wrote, "By this is love perfected with us, so that we may have confidence for the day of judgment. Because as he is, so also are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, for fear has to do with punishment." Now, when John in those words talks about things like punishment and the day of judgment, you know what he's talking about, don't you? He's talking about that day when Jesus is going to return to this earth. He's talking about that day when all the dead will be raised. He's talking about the day when Christ Jesus will judge the living and the dead. Now, maybe when you think about that day, there is a little fear that fills your heart. And that fear has to do with punishment. That fear comes from the fact that you know that you deserve some punishment. In fact, I would imagine that there's a part of you at times that is very bothered and feels very guilty about the wrong things you've done towards others. I'm going to guess there are times when you are very bothered and troubled by the failures in this life that you've committed. The times when you've let other people down. You see, on that day, that Savior Jesus is going to judge all people, and he is going to punish every wrong. And that part of you that's afraid of that punishment knows it's what you deserve. But that's why John encourages us to abide in God's love, to remain in that love of God, to think about that love of God, to remember that love of God. Because that perfect love of God, as John says, it drives out fear. That love of God, it drives out fear, not by giving you warm feelings of butterflies in your stomach rather than a chill up your spine. That love of God doesn't drive out fear by giving you a thrill of joy rather than a thrill of terror when you think about Judgment Day. God's love drives out fear because it silences that fear. It points you to what Christ has done to remove the punishment that you deserved. God's love drives out fear not so much by changing your emotions as by changing your status. That new status you have thanks to God's love is child of God. That's the status that was pronounced on you in the waters of your baptism by God himself. That status of child of God is what the Lord assures you is yours through forgiveness in his body and his blood in the sacrament. That status of child of God is what the Lord gives to you and reminds you of in his word when you hear that word and when you meditate on that word. God urges you to abide in his love so that it will drive out fear of that coming day of judgment. What an awesome love God has for you and me. What a perfect love he has for us. And yet John isn't content in these verses to just talk about God's love for us. John also urges you and me to abide in love toward our brothers. In fact, he was very point blank about it, right? He said, "This is the commandment we have from God. Whoever loves God must also love his brother." Now, while John uses that word brother to refer to more than just your brothers and sisters, your physical siblings here on this earth, for a moment, I'd like you to think about your siblings. If you grew up with brothers and sisters, then you know that just because somebody is your brother or your sister, just because they are related to you, doesn't mean that they are always nice to you. It doesn't mean that they are always kind and caring and compassionate towards you. In fact, I would imagine if you have brothers and sisters, you can maybe think of a few times growing up when they got on your nerves. Maybe you can think of a few times when they did things that they knew would annoy you, or where they purposely got into fights with you. And then you think about that, and you think about all the reasons that your brothers and sisters have given you not to love them. and you step outside of your family and you think of all the other people in this world that you interact with, and they often can give you even more reasons not to be kind or caring or loving to them. And John talks about what it's like when you and I let those reasons to get frustrated and annoyed get in the way of showing love to others. John says that when we do that, if anyone says, I love God and yet hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. John is very blunt, isn't he? He says, you're a liar. You're a liar if you say, I love God, but then you turn around and you fail to show love to other people. When you let other people's opinions or their annoying habits or their treatment of you get in the way of doing what is good for them, what is right for them, then what you're really doing is you're saying, God, I really don't care about what you have to say in your word. In fact, God, I really don't love you. I mean, think about it this way. Today is Father's Day. If you would say to your dad, Dad, I love you, but then the other 364 days of the year, you never listened to your dad, you never paid attention to a thing that he said, would your dad be likely to believe you when you said, I love you? The same is true if we say, I love God, but then we go out and we act lovelessly towards others. We're really making that statement, I love you, God, into an insincere statement. And I'll admit there's a lot of challenges in showing love to other people. There's a lot of obstacles that they put in the way, but that once again is why John started not by talking about us abiding in God and our love for our brothers, but that's why John started by talking about abiding in God's love. Because as John points out, we love because he first loved us. If we're going to show love to our brothers, if we're going to show love to the people around us, then we first of all need to know God's love. If we're going to abide in love for our brothers, we need to abide in God's love. Because only when you know God's love for you that has forgiven your wrongs, will you be ready to forgive the wrongs of others. Only when you see God's love and how he has dealt so patiently with you throughout your life, will you be ready to deal patiently with others. Only when you see God's love and how he humbled himself to become your servant, will you be ready to put aside your pride and serve other people. Only when you see God's love in setting aside his riches for your benefit, will you be ready to use your riches for the benefit of others. In short, only when you see the height and the depth and the breadth of God's love for you will you be ready to show love to your spouse, or your children, or your parents, or your friends, or your neighbors, or your coworkers, or your acquaintances, or just anyone that you happen to meet in this life. You may not feel warm fuzzies inside of yourself towards those people. You may not feel butterflies in your stomach about any of those people. But when you abide in God's love, then you will be ready to help and befriend those people in every need. I think I'm falling in love. I think I've fallen out of love. Maybe the way that people talk about love in this world, maybe the way a lot of people think about love in this world, makes it seem like something that doesn't really last, that comes and goes very easily. God be praised that his love is not like that. God's love for you in Christ Jesus, what he has done for you on the cross, is a love that abides. It is a love that you can rely on. Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, may you abide in that love that God has for you. Then you will abide in love towards your brother. Amen. Please stand. Now the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard and keep your hearts and minds through faith in Christ Jesus to life everlasting. Amen.